Town Administrator job description. Update from the Select Board, March 10, 2022 board meeting. DOR report, points to review and how they relate to the existing job description. And the third bullet point is review discussion of results from the professional traits chart. Number 3 is consideration of scheduling next TA search committee meeting, which would be March 21st. And then the 4th would be adjourn the meeting. So does anybody have any amendments to the agenda? No.
I would move that we approve the agenda as read.
Second?
Second.
George seconds. All in favor? Jeff?
Aye.
Vicky? Aye. Carol?
Aye.
Courtney?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Eric? Aye.
Say aye, Eric.
Aye.
He said aye. Did you get Margot?
No. It passes unanimously. All right. So the next subject matter is the consultant data. So all of you got your information back to me, which is great. Just so that you know, as we discussed last week, I looked at all of the particular consultants, and for first choice, I gave 2 points, and for second choice, I gave 1 point. So if you look at the grid, Community Paradigm at a total of 7, Jennifer Thompson, Capital Strategic, got 7, Rick White received 2 points, and MRI received 10. So from this voting, it looks like MRI received the most votes. Want to open for discussion?
Well, I didn't pick MRI. I wasn't impressed with Alan Gould. I actually didn't look at many of the firms as a firm. I looked at the name of the person, and he seems to be a police department law professional. He worked 21 years in the police department of Salem, New Hampshire.
Alan is not the person. There are 2 names down there.
Oh, on her sheet, there's only one.
Yeah, I only put 1 on there.
Okay, he's the principal there. He is not either of the people we would be getting.
Oh, well, that was what's on our sheet to vote on.
Okay.
The spreadsheet. Who are the 2 names, Mary? Do you know?
Yes, I gotta
You
find
can
them now.
tell us off the lane, but that's what I picked
The
up.
names are, hang on, Buzz Stepsinski
Yeah, he's the CEO and founder.
and Bob Mercier.
Hmm.
Okay.
And the other reason is I would favor a smaller firm than MRI myself.
Well, that smaller firms didn't get enough to pass it over the top of MRI. I mean, do we need to revisit any of these, George?
I would like to just talk for a moment, if I may, about some inquiries I've made. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to complete them all. I'm still waiting to hear back from some towns, but I decided to take it upon myself to contact some of the towns that I thought either were near to us or had similarities. Anyway, I have contacted Dover, Ashland, and Wellesley, and I'm hoping to hear back. Wellesley, because I know several people who've been involved with the town administrator search, but also putting the job description together. Ashland, simply because it's a neighboring town. Dover, of course, we're familiar with, and I'm waiting to hear back from them. I did contact Carlisle, which is sort of, it's funny. I've heard for so many years how we compare ourselves to Carlisle all the time. And when I called there, they just said, "You again?" I think they're interesting in that they do the same thing with us. And anyway, it was interesting to chat with them because they are in a search, as you may know. They have, they went out, they did not an RFP, but an RFQ, which is essentially requesting for a quote. And they got several quotes back, and I can't say it was necessarily the least expensive, but they did go with Community Paradigm Associates. And I asked them how long ago they began well, not when they began the search, but when they contracted with Community Paradigm, and it was about a month ago. So they're underway. And in Holliston, their town administrator is a fellow named Travis Ahern. Have very favorable things to say about him. He will have served 2 years this coming July, and they also used Community Paradigm, and we're happy with them. I didn't ask about who they worked with at each of these firms. The other place I called was Medfield, and I had a very nice chat with their town administrator. And I told her that I knew her predecessor very well, Mike Sullivan, who actually started in Medfield when I started in Sherborn, but he lasted 44 years. And anyway, she said that they had, I should expect a call from their chair of the board to talk further about it, but that they looked at, talked about having a search firm, but they opted not to. They hired her. She said she worked for Mike as his assistant for 20 years. And that apparently, and I'm sure that's what he would confirm, they felt that she had the knowledge, I guess the credentials and the background to serve their purposes. So she's been there now since Mike retired in 2019. So I just wanted to let you know that's as far as I've gotten at this point. But I thought it was interesting to speak with these people, and they certainly were all very forthcoming.
Thank you, George. That was, it's good insight for us to have in our back pocket as we move forward. Paul, did you have something to say?
Yes, I'm trying to remember whether I said this at the last meeting or whether I just said it to one or two people, but let me start. And if I've already said it, then please cut me off. But one of my towns wanted to engage my legal services to help them convert a member of the Board of Selectmen to the TA, because he's been doing the job without pay. And they wanted me to do that because their search failed. Their search failed because the three finalists, two were not experienced, and the one that they really intended to hire took a job in another town. And they reported that there was too many towns searching for town administrators at this point in time, and that it was very competitive out there. And so I asked them what they were planning to do generally. They said they were considering 4 different options. One of those was to increase the pay of the town administrator.
What was it? What was the pay, Paul?
I don't know, but they were going to increase the pay substantially. Plus, they were talking about a signing bonus of $50,000 to attract candidates. Secondly, they were saying that someone had an idea of just getting a list of all the current town administrators out there and getting on the phone and calling every one of them and seeing if they could attract somebody who's already holding a job and would respond favorably. Another proposal that they were considering, they reported to me, was waiting until the fall to redo the search, because they thought things couldn't get any worse than they are now. And there was some likelihood that it would be a lot better.
How long ago was this search, or how long ago did they start this?
They started in November and it concluded about a week or so ago.
Okay.
I think you're one of the ones I reported this to. And whenever I reported it to you, it was like the next day after they gave me this thing. What they had recommended was go with a firm that has an already existing stable of town administrators who are searching for a job. And although they may not have placed those town administrators anyplace, at least they got quite a group. They told me that the competition was so intense that people were going not only with high paying positions, but they were going with glamour towns that were on the water, towns that had something interesting going on within them, and so on and so on. So as I listened to all this, I was thinking, how does Sherborn stack up with all these other towns? I don't think we want to pay a lot of money for a town administrator. We're certainly not in the league of Weston that pays in the 300s. It's
Excuse me for a minute, Paul. George, when you were talking to Carlisle, did they tell you who they picked for?
They're using community paradigm.
They are, okay.
Yeah.
And
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jay.
trouble? Oh, sorry. Were they having trouble? Do you think, did they indicate to you, George, that they were having trouble?
Having trouble finding a candidate?
Yes.
Well, they've only just begun. I mean, when I say begun, they hired the firm a month ago. So
Okay.
I don't know how quickly these firms want to turn people,
Okay.
get to the point of having candidates available to
Gotcha.
review.
Okay. All right. Sorry, Paul. I don't disagree with you that it's competitive, and I think there's ways that we can present ourselves that, might be a little bit more attractive. I did spend a lot of time in marketing, so marketing 101, you can just kind of figure out what the keywords are going to be for people. And I think from a salary standpoint, that's why I asked you what they paid, because we're pretty competitive with everybody else. Aren't we, Eric? Do you think we're competitive with other people?
Towns of size, yeah.
Yeah.
And the big obvious ones like Cambridge and stuff like that go way up there. The few I've seen that are a little high, like Sudbury and Westwood, sit close to 200, I think, in that range there. But as far as other communities of size, yeah, I think it's appropriate in there. We're pretty high before, even, to be honest with you. And we can always reset and see what the pool
Yeah.
makes.
Mhm.
I think
But
signing bonus.
with the police chief,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
offered the same salary the police chief is making. We got a great candidate, absolutely. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it shows. I don't think that's exactly where adjustment needs to be made.
Vicky, I have a question. I figure maybe Eric or Paul could, or Jeff, maybe even you could answer this. And that is, what does Dover, I couldn't figure out, looking at Dover's website, whether they have a town administrator.
They do. I'm not a big fan, though.
Do they call him or her an administrative assistant, or?
No,
I think
I
it's
think
town
it's town
manager, isn't it?
administrator.
the town administrator.
I have been in meetings with them several times recently. I haven't found them very effective, or their select board, first of all, is only 3 people, and they're pretty rigid, I would say, is my perspective. And so they don't use the town administrator. They don't have a strong town administrator. Remember, we debated this. They don't have a strong one, I would say. Their model isn't a strong one.
Yeah, okay.
Mm.
So
Well, thank you for that.
that's my experience.
Paul, the
Like,
people that you spoke to, who were they using for consultants?
they're not now, but they were talking about a community paradigm,
Okay.
and they asked me about that.
Well, I think that if we follow the same suit that we did for the police chief, and even though Wayne was wonderful and he was really spot on with most of his comments and direction, I think that we can use our own common sense and kind of form what we want to be able to make sure that we get what we need from the consultants. I mean, I kind of akin it to um, don't take this to heart, but lawyers, I just feel that if you have to really manage lawyers, and you have to manage consultants, because otherwise you end up having them go off in a direction that you can't pull them back on. So, Eric, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just my suggestion is, we did a vote. We through a system that we agreed upon at the last meeting. We have one first place, two tied for second places. I think there's two choices here. If we go ahead and contract with first place, or we
Right.
interview first and the two tied for second. I mean, I think that's the two options here I'd kind of focus on, but
Okay. Should we take a vote on this? Anybody else have any other comments? All
And the
right,
vote,
then
whether to interview or to just go with first place.
right. So, all
Why
those
don't we
in
make
favor?
make a motion one way or the other, and then
Yeah, it
Okay.
has to be one
Yeah.
motion.
Okay, go ahead, Mary.
Um, I would say, I think we should, before we make the motion, I think we should decide, whether we want to, by discussion, whether we want to hire, the first place or interview. I would favor interviewing myself.
Interview all three.
No, interview the first one in any case. And then maybe, since we've had community paradigm, a lot of people seem familiar with that. People on this committee seem to have had some interaction with that, organization. And we've heard good things about it. I have heard, I mean, I couldn't tell you who told me, but I've heard favorable things. And so I would suggest maybe interviewing those two.
well, I
But-
would
but- yeah,
recommend
but
we
Jen
were tied.
Thompson-
Yeah,
Jen Thompson is tied with.
Yeah, if you're gonna interview one tie and not the other, you instantly show a bias, and I don't think it
Yeah,
sticks to
okay,
the intent
sure,
nor
then
the
interview all
integrity of
three
the
of them.
process. Yeah, as
Right.
the
I'm
process
fine
has
with all three.
integrity.
So I'd like to make a motion for whether we should interview all three, the first place and then the two tied for second. Somebody want to
I
second?
would
that?
second your motion.
All in favor of interviewing all three?
But I
What?
mean, technically need to open it up for
Oh,
discussion.
Jessica? Okay. all right.
My question is, how long do we anticipate this interview process taking?
I think that we could pretty much get them, if we can't get them all in one night, it'll be mostly 2 nights. And then we have to make a decision right after
Yep.
that, and then that'll get
Mhm.
going. I mean, in the meantime, we can work on the job description and a few other things, but it shouldn't be more than the 1st of April.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we could get them to Zoom in
Yeah.
next Monday and talk to
Right.
them then. I mean,
Right.
Yeah,
That's what I'm thinking.
and if they can't do it and we can't get or the next Monday, then that maybe tells us something.
Right, that they're too busy. No, don't disagree with that.
And we should, this isn't really part of the discussion, but then the next thing we should do then maybe is draft some questions that so we ask them all the same questions.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
good idea.
Diane, do you have your hand up?
I do. I just want to remind everybody that we have the advisory hearings on the 26th, and we have a second night for Monday, the 28th. So it's possible you won't be able to have a TA
No.
search committee meeting that night.
we are
Yeah,
not
the
going
26th.
to the second night.
Yeah.
I think we may go to a second night.
No.
We're gonna be discussing Rebecca Honeywell and Rockwood on the second night.
All right, so if that's the case, then maybe we could have a special meeting somewhere in the middle of that week instead. So we'd have to take a look at that and see
I mean-
who's available.
Post it for Monday to be safe. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You can always unpost something. That's not hard.
Okay,
Well, next Monday we'd be available. It's just the Monday
Right.
after that we wouldn't. possibly.
We have to try to get everybody to
Yeah.
come in.
Post
talk.
them all, just in case.
Yeah, they already are, I think.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take Courtney's word for it. There won't be a second night.
Let's hope. I'm worried about town meeting, actually.
Yes.
Going a
That
second night.
might be 2 nights. That actually might be 2 nights.
Uh,
Not, that won't be good.
No.
I don't
Let's
think it
get
will.
some really good consent agendas up there. Let's get some
Well,
really.
I'm trying my best.
I
He's
will
good at it.
I will call whatever question.
Yeah.
Vicky, you need to revise your motion about interviewing all 3 companies. And you wanted to add about the time frame for that for April 1st, I believe.
I wanted to interview all 3 companies before April 1st.
Yes, I know you had a time frame in there. And did you want to add anything about next Monday's meeting with the hope of that they would join a Zoom meeting next Monday?
Yes.
As was,
So our
recommended.
goal is to try to get them in next Monday's meeting, all 3 of them.
Okay, Mary, I think that takes care of your concern about zooming them into the meeting.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a suggestion. This is a general suggestion, that the chair not make the motions, but
Yeah.
that the chair call for a motion and have someone else, the chair would
Make
say,
the
I call
motion.
for, I'd like a motion for such and such, and then someone will move it, and then someone will second it.
Great,
Yeah.
that's very helpful for my notes as well. Thank you, Mary.
On the select board, I call it fishing for motions.
And we
Mhm.
may want to make it April 4th instead of April 1st, because the 4th is a Monday, so it's
Okay.
concurrent. Like if we had to vote on one that night, if for some reason we were delayed, that would be a night we'd meet, April 4th.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yep, it does. Paul, did you have something to add?
I was gonna make the motion that you just said.
Okay.
So that you said you wanted somebody else to do it. I'm happy to
Yes.
make the motion.
Thank
I'll
you.
second
Relieve
both.
you of that
Thanks.
first job.
I'll third your motion then.
All right. Motion is made and seconded. So all in favor of interviewing the 3 finalists next week, can you say aye or no? Mary,
Aye.
Vicky, aye. Jeff,
All right.
George,
I,
Courtney,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Bill? Yes? You're on mute, Bill.
You're
sorry.
muted, Bill. Wave at us.
Just put your thumb up if you want to say aye.
No.
No, okay.
No, okay.
Paul,
There you go.
Aye.
Eric?
Aye. I want to comment. I love a split vote. So good job, Bill.
All right, so the ayes have it.
so,
Uh,
Vicky,
Ayes.
now that we've made this decision, logistically, how do you see this working? You've got 3 firms in one evening. Are you,
So we can give them half an hour each,
all right,
and then we have to create specific questions, as Jeff said. And those questions will be, and we will tell them it's going to be 30 minutes. And then that's just get them off at 30 minutes and then bring the next person on. So that should be an hour and a half at the most. And then we can collect our thoughts. If they're all here at once, then maybe we could talk about it afterwards and make a decision, or we can collect our thoughts and wait until the next week and make our decision. But, if we can do it that night, we'd probably be better off doing it that night.
good. I would just recommend we all think about what questions we believe are important and submit those to you.
Yes,
You can put together that list or what you think
Yeah.
are the most
I
appropriate.
can, what I can do is, I can come up with a short list to start you off with. And then if you want to add to that, you can do that. But I think probably, I don't know, maybe no more than 10 questions. What do you think? 10 is enough?
Oh, plenty.
More than plenty, to be honest.
Yeah.
Give them a
Mary,
chance to
did you
talk
have-
about themselves.
Mary?
I have a logistics question.
Mhm.
We don't want candidates 2 and 3 to be hearing what candidate 1 has to
Right.
say.
Yes.
So I don't know how is the best way to handle that. It's hard to keep, we could go to executive session, I guess, because there is money involved. Um, Or we could, just keep them in the waiting room, but then you never know. This is a public meeting, and so you never know who's actually on there. So I would bow to whoever has done this kind of thing before, so whatever you
We
think
went to
is a good
executive
idea, but I
session.
think we should take care of that.
Yeah. Jeff, did you
Yeah,
want?
that was one of my 3 points, which I think I think when we did the police chief search, I'm pretty sure we did executive
We
session.
did, yeah.
We allowed them to be in the waiting room, so that means they can see who the other firms are. But that's not, they're not hearing anything, but that's probably, they probably see each other all the
Right.
time in different towns. So I don't think that's a bad part at all.
But executive session, if it's easy enough to do, then
Yeah.
we don't even counter that.
I think that's the best way to do it.
Correct.
George, did you have a question?
Yes, would we, Vicky, you're going to be developing this list. Would we give them the questions in advance of their coming in?
Yeah, I guess we could. I think that we did that for, it would be similar to an RFP, so yeah, we could give them all.
Well, I don't know. We didn't do that with the consultant. We did that with the candidates when we were asked
Right.
them to respond, but I kind of like getting them to respond on the fly, but we could
Yeah.
go. I had 2 more points to make. One was, well, obviously for Community Paradigm, I think we're proposing Bernie Lynch and Jennifer Thompson for CSS, but we'd have to pick Buzz or Bob for MRI unless you want both of them to come. So
I think we can also see who's available. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Jennifer probably won't, but maybe Bernie would have somebody in
yeah.
his place if he has a meeting, so.
Yeah. And then I would recommend we put a 45-minute slot for each one where we interview for half an hour and we summarize our sort of reactions to that candidate for 15 minutes afterwards, rather than doing all 3 at the end, because you sometimes muddle them. So you could just share some initial impressions in 15 minutes or 10 minutes right after the person spoke. So it's fresh in your mind and you're not confusing it with someone else. Because what I did last time for the police chief search, when we interviewed them, I created a spreadsheet with all the questions and all the, we filled out 1 sheet per candidate with our notes. And then we could, have a standard metric to measure them against. So we could do that
Yeah,
again.
that's not a bad idea.
That worked pretty well, I thought, because then we had that grid. Remember, we all just took cryptic notes in
Right.
the same spot. But then when we were talking about it, we were doing it apples to apples.
Okay,
We
That's
wouldn't
not a
have
bad
30.
idea.
We had 30 questions, but that was for the candidates themselves, not
right.
for the search firms.
Paul, did you have a comment?
Yes, just speaking as a lawyer, there's no legal executive session for contract negotiations with a vendor. The exemption that applies is contract negotiations with a town official or a town employee, but not with vendors. So that we essentially have to do this in public session. And the way most communities handle it is they ask the candidates if they would be so courteous as to wait in the waiting room or whatever has to be done and not to be in the meeting. But you can't stop them from seeing what goes on.
Could we put them in executive session if we were going to discuss particulars of individuals, that names that might come up? Or, I mean, how can we get an executive session if it's going to be, information that they may not want disclosed to the public? I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure they've done this numerous times.
Right. All right.
I don't think we want to ever get into an open meeting law issue
Okay.
this early.
Okay, so it's a public meeting and we'll draft out at least 10 questions. It'll be 45 minutes, 30 minutes for the interview and 15 minutes for us to discuss our initial feedback. Is everybody comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think you're going to get to all 10 questions in 30 minutes. It's not giving them enough time to respond, I don't think. I mean, yes, if you're asking about what's your cost or are you able to do this, those go fast. But I don't know, maybe you all have the experience with this, so
Is
Well, I
this,
think go ahead. Who's talking? George?
I was just going to ask, is there a way, and this might not work with people's schedules, but is there a way to segregate these three companies either on different days or different hours of a day, or spread out somehow if we devoted some time? So that I just think it's very difficult to have a meeting there, have a discussion about it, and then the next company comes in. They still could listen in if you had a day later or a different hour, but it's less likely to, I think, be something that they would consider. I'm not sure the ability of all of us to be able to take that much time, but if others were willing to do it, I would, as long as we pick the day or the days. And I'm just thinking if there's a way for us to legitimately segregate these so they're separate interviews and not quite separate.
I don't think there is. I don't think there is if it's going to be an open meeting. With executive session, that's one thing, but if you must hold an open meeting, you kind of got to do them all and kind of in a row. Maybe we take away, I like Jeff's idea, maybe you take away that discussion right after, and just go right, discuss at the end, because then you're not like really elongating it. No one's coming on at 10 o'clock. You know what I mean? Someone gets 7 and an 8, 9, whatever else, you know what I mean? I agree with Jeff's idea in doing that, but maybe in concept, you don't do that just to go bang, bang, bang and have all 3 at once. But if it has to be open meeting, and if we're recording these meetings, then someone's going to look and see the questions, and it's just the nature of the beast, what I mean? But if like Paul said, they agree to go into the waiting room, so on and so forth, then they agree. And then it's kind of like no debate about it.
So if we think that a half an hour is not enough time, maybe we give them the extra 15 minutes and do 45 for everybody.
And you might want to cut it maybe 6, 7 questions. And what are we really going to ask? Because then they're going to go off on each one. Do you know what I mean? Something like that.
Yeah.
I can see 10 questions for an actual applicant.
Yeah.
For the consultant, 6, 7 questions.
I agree with Eric there. I think coming up with 10 questions that aren't really into the weeds is going to be difficult.
Okay.
No, we're going to want to know what towns they've done it for, what they see, how they see the market right now, that kind of thing.
Right.
We're they can validate our concerns about tight labor pool.
Background research. I'm gonna want to say I have a question. Background research, absolutely.
So I think that'll be plenty. 7 questions will be plenty. We were doing for the police chief search. We were doing 4 candidates a night. Some nights we had one that was 3, but
we had a lot of people to deal with.
We interviewed close to a dozen people, I think.
Well, at this point, then we're going to leave it to one night. Get it over with, hopefully on the 21st, and at this point, open it to 45 minutes and 7 questions. If the next week we feel like we can cut it down to 30 minutes. I mean, I would ask everybody to do homework on them. I gave you all website connections, and I think all of their information is there. They all have a list of towns that they've dealt with. So, at this point, what we're going to ask them is basically, what kind of response they've had, what they would plan to do if it is a tight market, that kind of thing. Really focus on maybe what we've heard as negative factors, and then kind of see how they would deal with that, versus having them go through, their background, because everything's on the internet now. So we don't really need to get that. So we could get this done in a half an hour each.
Vicky?
George?
Vicky?
Okay, George. Sorry, Paul. Let George.
I don't hate to throw a wrench into the works, but I want to understand here. I'm thinking more and more about doing this all at once, and I recognize the argument for being able to have us as a group talk about each company as soon as they finish, but I would much prefer that we get through all 3 companies before we start to talk about our reactions to each of them. It may be a little more difficult, but we can take notes, and hopefully our memory is reasonable. I just don't like the idea of us making comment, positive or negative, that that the other firms, despite what you might think, have the opportunity to listen in on. I think it influences too much there, or it has gives them too much of an upper hand to
Yeah,
know what our thinking is. And
because it's going to be
I-
open. I agree with you. Yeah.
I would prefer, let's interview each one, give them a half an hour. If they don't need a half an hour, we'll move on to the next. You know, they're all there. And then when they're done, we can chat enough about all of them together.
Okay. How does everybody feel? Oh, Bill, did you want to make a comment? Oh, sorry, Paul. Paul went first. Sorry, Bill. Paul?
Yeah, two things. First, George said what I was going to say,
Okay.
because if we have a discussion and someone says, I really like that, they like the color yellow. Well, the next one that comes in is going to say, we believe in the color yellow.
Right,
And-
because it's an open, right. It makes a lot of
Right.
sense.
Right.
Agreed.
So the second point was that you had mentioned, let's start with 45, and if we need to, we can go to 30 on the next day, if we have another day. I think they all have to be treated equally. There's only 3. And if you give some 45, I would say give all
All of them
45.
45. I think 30 minutes will be enough.
I do too.
30 is fine,
Okay.
but just treat them all. I just treat them all the same.
Okay.
And the same questions. Don't have
Right.
7 questions and then decide, well, some of these questions aren't good. Let's do another set of questions, so that like the last candidate gets an entirely different set of questions.
No, we wouldn't do that. Everybody will have the same questions for sure. Yeah, we'll just keep it to 30 minutes. Bill, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I had a thought, perhaps not a good one. Why couldn't we send them questions in advance and ask them to respond to the questions written in a written manner in advance? Then we would be able to look at those questions, and we could then ask a second round of questions based on their answers, and we wouldn't have to ask each of the contenders go through all of the same questions for them. We would just look in particular at the questions that we liked their answers or didn't like their answers.
How does everybody feel about that? Anybody have any thoughts?
Well, I like catching them off guard. I like to get a candid response, not a one they've had a week to write. I would rather get them speaking off the cuff, so I get sort of it feels to me almost like a job interview, like I'm more putting them on the spot than reading something maybe someone wrote for them. Maybe they didn't even
Right.
write it themselves,
Oh, that's
I
true.
agree.
I didn't think of that. Anybody else have any thoughts?
I agree with Jeff.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't think that I forgot to think somebody could actually fill it out for them, so we wouldn't be getting what they really think. It's
I
not a
want
bad
to see
idea.
how they think on their feet. I mean, I realize it's not a bad idea, but you're trying to be efficient, but I want to see how they think on their feet too.
Okay.
I have a very self-serving question in terms of taking the minutes. Since each person's going to be dealing with their own notes and so on the responses and so on, I'm assuming that my job is to the name of the person, the company, and so on, but
Yes.
very brief in
Yes.
that description and not any details about their answers. Thank you.
I don't believe you had to go through everyone. All right, so the consensus is that it will be 30 minutes, no more than 7 questions, and we will ask them on the fly so that they won't have to be able to prepare in advance. Can somebody make a motion to accept that?
Yeah, I would move that we do a 30-minute interview with each of these 3 firms, the principal or the person who will be our client engagement manager. And that we would limit to 30 minutes, 7 questions maximum. And what was the other part? I forgot, Vicky. They got to do it verbally on the
The
fly.
third part was verbally, not in
Yeah.
On the
writing.
fly, right?
Okay, that's my motion. I stand by it.
Anybody second? Oh, sorry.
Under discussion.
Sure.
Somebody has to second it first. Yeah.
I'll
Second?
second.
Okay,
I have-
George
Either-
seconds.
either.
Open for
So-
discussion?
Yes.
Paul?
Can I speak?
Yes, Paul.
So typically you have them give an opening statement and you have them give a closing statement.
Okay,
And you also include a little bit of questions, which normally are, how long it's going to take, what's the timeline, what are our timelines and stuff like that. How fast do we want to do the procurement? All those kinds of things, I'm sure they'd want to have. So there's 3 other items that Jeff didn't include in his motion. And I was trying to suggest that maybe we should include those 3 items because they're pretty much standard.
Yep, I would take that as a friendly amendment.
So the 3 that you're adding is opening and a closing
statements,
statement.
And their ability to ask us questions.
timeline, yeah. And then ability to ask us questions.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? They close for discussion and open for a vote. We're going to vote on the motion. That'll be 30 minutes, no more than 7 questions. What was the third one again? Oh, this is bad.
On
Oh.
Make an
verbally,
opening and closing
Verbal.
statement, and they can
A
ask.
verbal and then
questions.
opening and closing statements and then ability to ask us questions.
Right.
How do you vote, Jeff?
Aye.
Aye. Vicky, aye. Bill?
Aye.
Aye. Mary?
Aye.
Carol?
aye.
George?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Courtney?
Aye.
It's unanimous. The ayes have it. All right. So at this point, I will put some questions together and get them to everybody tomorrow. And you can add everything. You can add questions to it, but we'll remember, we'll try to keep it to 7. And if you can send them back to me as soon as possible. Mary, would you be able to call MRI and ask them if they can come on the 21st?
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll do ones at 7:15 to 7:45, and then 7:45 to 8:15, and then
8:15 to 8:45.
8:45. Okay. So see which one they can do, or tell them we have a slot open at 7:15, and then I'll call the other 2. I'll call Community Paradigm and Jeff. Can you call? Would you mind? I mean, yeah, Jeff, would you mind calling Jennifer?
CSS, yeah.
So tell her 8:15 to 8:45, and I'll tell CPA 7:45 to 8:15.
Yeah, and each of us will find out collectively if they're available on those nights.
Right.
What are we saying? It's a week from tonight, so it'd be the 21st?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay.
One thing, do you have, Vicky, from when we did the candidate interviews for the police chief search, I created the spreadsheet. A lot of the questions are in there. You'd eliminate the police specific ones, but the open and closing statement is in there. You might just glance at it, or I can send it if you want me to email it to you.
Yeah.
You want
If
me
you
to send
could,
it to
I know
you?
I have it somewhere in a
Yeah.
folder.
It-
Oh,
I would-
speaking of
it
folders,
had a lot more questions, but it had a lot of that.
okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of folders, there is a Dropbox folder that we put together that everybody can access. So I'll be putting all of the information that I sent to everybody will be in the Dropbox as well, and I'll try to put it in folders for each night's meeting so you can keep track of it. But I'll send you that connection as well. I'll send you that link so you all have it. So the next point for the meeting is to, let me just get the agenda up. Would be update from the select board on the board meeting. And specifically what I was looking for is just to briefly talk about kind of what I don't know how many went to the board meeting and saw it, but basically the net of it is that there's a compromise on the finance director position, and Paul and Eric and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, was decided that the finance director would report to the town administrator, but it would be open, they would be open to be allowed to come anytime to the select board. Is that correct?
That was some of the discussion went that direction. There was a split vote upon who it actually answers for, but I think one of the compromises was ultimately answers to and performance reviews to the town administrator, but I guess can, I don't know, respond or whatever to the select board.
Okay. Okay,
George was going to revise the wording though, I
he
think.
was, okay.
See, the
So
problem
both-
is, I'm not even convinced we should have it on the warrant because, advisory is a little upset because usually you don't have them the first time they see it, be it advisory public hearing. They,
Right,
you know how from our time on advisory together, they would review it in January, February, maybe provide input, and then they'd already
Right.
seen it once. So they haven't seen anything yet. And so Stephen's a little frustrated that we have 2 warrant articles, at least 2, that they have no idea what the wording's going to be.
okay.
I'll call Stephen.
Yeah.
Well, at this point, it's going to be something to that extent in terms of looking at who that position reports to, and then ultimately be able to have access to the select board when they need it. Mary?
That's sort of fine with me, with the only reservation being, is there a problem with hiring into a position that is defined in one way in the general bylaws and is then different from what's defined there?
Are you referring to the TA job or the finance director?
Well, either. I mean, it would be both because currently the TA is not, the FD does not report directly to the TA, so that would be a change in responsibility for the town administrator as well. So,
You can put something in the job description that says like, and adhere to the, requirements as set forth in the bylaws as routinely amended or something like that.
okay, I'm asking that because I don't know how that would be handled.
In my opinion, given that it's more common than not that a finance director reports to the TA, I think it's part of industry standard that I can't imagine them pushing back on it.
Okay.
Paul, did you have a comment?
No, I'm trying to think that the TA portion of this was not controversial, and we're all pretty much in agreement. It was the finance director piece that was the issue, because I think the TA bylaw already says that the town administrator coordinates the job of the finance director and a number of other jobs. So that I don't recall any particular amendment being made on that subject to the TA's piece. The amendment that we were talking about was to the finance director, and we're not hiring a finance director, or the search committee is not hiring a finance director. There are changes, though, that we did agree to the town administrator bylaw. For example, the IT position.
Right, right.
So that's in the process of in a non-controversial way. I think we were unanimous on those changes. So we know what is going to go to town meeting. And I have no problem disclosing the fact that there's these relatively minor amendments being made to the bylaw.
Right.
There's
Eric,
no
did you have, oh, sorry. Eric, did you have a question?
I wanted to clarify, it wasn't unanimous about the TA bylaw. There was still some debate about the HR director position, about not having that removed from it, because otherwise the bylaws are silent about an HR director, and that there was no ability to stick it elsewhere. There was no proposal to stick it elsewhere. We're somewhat uniform on the unanimous on the IT director that could be delegated by a town administrator, and we're all definitely uniform on a town administrator bylaw on the removal of requirement of a 3-year contract.
Okay, right. The 3-year contract. Mary, did you have a comment?
Just the fact that when Paul just spoke, he talked about the TA coordinating among various people, and that is not the same. And I that's sort of what is there now, and I think that is contrary to having the finance director report directly to the TA. So I think if that is going to be what happens, then it needs to be part of the TA job description, and we just need to make sure that that is in the bylaw, or that there is a way to amend the bylaw outside of town meeting if this isn't going to town meeting. And, you know, I'm just wary of having a situation where someone looks and says, well, you know, I coordinate with you, I don't report to you.
Right,
If in fact, you know, that is the desire, to have that individual report to the other person. The other person needs to be able to say, here it is, you report to me. So,
well, I would pose this, the other two portions of number 2, I would like to put on hold, either next week or the week after, if we can get to it, because I think what we're talking about now, and what, also the DOR report and the professional traits chart also go through that. So I'd like to take this job description piece and discussion and kind of put that after we go and deal with the consultants. And then maybe as we're going through that, once we pick somebody, we can have them take a look at what we're doing for the job description and give their perspective on that as well. So if everybody is okay with that, can I have a motion to table the other 2 points under section 2, and to discuss the job description components of the TA job to a date after we get the consultant chosen? Can somebody put that motion in place?
So moved.
Thank you,
Sec-
Paul.
se- Second,
Jeff seconds. Jeff, how do you vote?
aye.
Mary,
I,
Vicky, aye. Eric,
Aye.
George,
I,
Carol,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it.
That's
So
a
as long
good
as everybody's
suggestion.
comfortable with that, why don't we'll put that out, work on that with someone, we can get that together. And so the next scheduled meeting for the committee would be on the 21st. And between now and then, Mary and I and Jeff will get some information together, and we'll be sending out a note to everyone by Wednesday, hopefully, to let them know by Wednesday or Thursday what we're going to be doing for next Monday. Everybody's comfortable with that?
Absolutely.
Totally, and I think it would be good to get their input on the job description,
No, that's
obviously,
what I
too. We
said.
could do-
That's why we put it off. We'll just get
Yeah,
what they
yeah,
have
that's
to say
great.
about that.
It's a
Bill,
great
did you have
suggestion.
open for discuss? Bill, what did you have something to
I'm
say?
sorry, maybe I missed this, but what's the process by which we generate the questions which we're going to ask the consultant?
So I'm going to put some together. So I'm going to take a look at what we did for the police chief, and then I will be sending that out to everyone to comment, or if I missed 1 or 2 points to add to it, and then I'll come up with a succinct number of 7 to pose to them. So I guess what you need to do is, I'll put the questions together. If you think they're good questions, say, yes, these look good, but could you add this, and tell me what you think you might want to add, and I'll either add it or we can leave it for another time. Does that make sense?
Yep, I got it.
Okay, not unless somebody wants to work on it with me. Okay, I'll do it.
I just
I'm happy to help if I can.
Oh, all right, Bill, why don't we do that then? Myself and Bill will work on the questions, and we'll get them to you by the end of the week. All right, can I have a motion to adjourn? Did we cover all of our, okay, Paul?
So moved.
I've never had a 1-hour meeting before.
There you go, see, I set a new
I'm
precedent here.
feeling really disoriented.
Like daylight savings
We
time
can
all
keep
over again.
going. I need it
Hey, vote.
seconded.
Who
Vote
seconded?
no on the motion.
Second, Eric?
Yep.
All in favor of adjourning, Paul,
Aye.
George,
I.
Eric,
Aye.
Vicky, I, Carol,
Aye.
Courtney,
Nay.
That's
Mary,
Paul.
I.
Jeff.
That's Chuck Yon always did that. That was his moniker. Jeff
Jeff,
says
aye.
I. Jeff says I here.
Bill?
Aye.
Okay, great. All right, we all have our marching orders, and we'll get something to you over the week. Just keep an eye on your emails. Thank you all. The
Yeah,
meeting is
guys,
adjourned
thanks.
at 7:59. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky.
Thank you.